This happened just a few months ago. I was 31, a nurse working the night shift at a busy city hospital. I had just been promoted and wanted to prove I was worthy of it. The building felt so different at night. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, the white walls trapped shadows, and the smell of antiseptic hung thick in the air. I thought I'd get used to it, but I never did. On my first night, I strolled down the hallway. It was quiet, except for the faint beeping of machines. I noticed an empty gurney. At first, I thought it was odd. Maybe it had been left there after a patient was moved. But then, it moved. It rolled a few feet, as if someone were pushing it. I shook my head, convincing myself it was just my imagination. I felt cold and returned it to the storage area quickly. The nights didn't get much better. In the break room, I thought I heard whispers. They were soft, like distant conversations. I didn't see anyone else around, but the feeling was unsettling. I wanted to brush it off, but couldn't help looking over my shoulder. I kept thinking, maybe it's just the wind or the building settling. I felt like something wasn't right. Then one night, alarms started blaring unexpectedly. I rushed to the room, but the patient was calm. He looked at me, wide-eyed, and said there were figures at the foot of his bed. At first, I thought he was dreaming or hallucinating. Maybe he's just tired, I told myself. But something in his voice made me uneasy. I felt my pulse quicken as I reassured him. The thought kept circling in my mind. I had doubts. But part of me was terrified. It only escalated from there. I found myself walking those long, empty halls, shadows dancing in the corners of my vision. The feeling of being watched gnawed at me, yet I had no proof. I kept telling myself, "You're tired. Just focus." But I could feel the weight of an unseen presence inching closer. Each incident pulled me deeper into confusion. Was it the hospital's dark history, or just my exhaustion? I didn't know. I wasn't sleeping enough. I tried to convince myself this was all in my head. But with each shift, the boundaries blurred more and more, straining my nerves. One night I stood at the end of a hallway, my breath heavy in my chest. I thought I saw someone out of the corner of my eye, but when I looked, there was nothing. Just shadows. My heart raced, and I felt like I might be losing it. I was about to turn back when I heard a voice, low and chilling, whisper my name. I froze. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice shaking. No answer came, just silence. I took a step backward, my mind racing. What was happening to me? I wasn't sure how to answer that. In that moment, I felt an undeniable truth. Something was there with me, waiting. I couldn't shake the feeling that it wanted me to uncover its secrets. And in that hospital full of shadows, I knew I had to tread carefully because something had shifted in the night. I tried to shake off the fear that gripped me as I hurried back to the nurse's station. I needed to clear my head. Maybe it was just my imagination running wild. But the heaviness of the air felt different. The buzzing lights seemed more oppressive, each flicker intensifying my unease. That night, I counted down the hours until my shift ended. I couldn't fully focus on my duties, thoughts circling like vultures. I had to push through. I forced myself to check on my patients, but the pit in my stomach only grew deeper. Each room held more shadows than the last. As I walked past the gurney, I noticed something odd. A single white glove rested on the edge. Who had been here? I wondered. Dread wrapped around my chest. I grabbed a pen and made a note for the next shift. But it didn't escape me that the glove looked too pristine, like it had just been placed there. A chill ran through me, and I hurried back to my desk, forcing thoughts of creepy gurneys aside. What I didn't realize was that the night had only begun its torment. Later, as I was monitoring the vitals of a patient, I felt a sudden cold breeze brush against my arm. I looked up, and the window in the room was shut tight. Fear tangled within me. That voice, the chilling whisper from before, echoed in my mind. It was then I heard the sound, a soft, echoing giggle coming from behind me. I turned sharply, my heart racing. No one was there. I checked the hallway. Empty. It felt as if the air thickened around me, testing my sanity. I shook my head, breathing heavily. "This is ridiculous," I whispered to myself. I decided to take a break and clear my head. Little did I know that stepping outside would plunge me back into the depths of my frayed nerves. In the break room, I fumbled for my phone to call my partner, just to hear a familiar voice. But before I could hit call, the lights flickered ominously, plunging me into darkness. I felt my breath catch. I quickly moved toward the door, but before I could get far, I heard the giggle again. But this time, it felt like it resonated inside my head. Suddenly, the lights buzzed back on, but the break room looked different. The chairs were no longer in their usual places. Something had shifted. My pulse quickened. I could feel the panic rising, fighting against my resolve to stay calm. I backed out slowly. That's when I saw it, a figure peering through the glass of the exit door, silhouetted against the dim light. It was small, almost childlike. The look in its eyes made my stomach drop. I wanted to scream, but the sound got stuck in my throat. I blinked and suddenly it was gone, as if it had never been there. I stumbled back into the hallway, fear coursing through my veins. I needed answers. I couldn't let this go. I had to figure out what was happening. But the moment I stepped back into the corridor, a door slammed shut behind me. The sound reverberated in my gut, a thunderous warning that I was not alone. I turned to run, but my instincts screamed that whatever came next would make everything I had experienced so far feel insignificant. I found myself standing at the intersection of two long hallways, each filled with swirling darkness. I was caught between the haunting whispers of a past that haunted this place and the terrible weight of a terrible truth that was begging to be uncovered. And as I stood there trembling, I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't safe, and something was coming for me. I stood frozen at the intersection, my mind racing but my body refusing to move. Shadows danced along the walls, and my heart was a relentless drum against my ribs. I knew I had to decide, left or right. Each hallway felt like a personification of my growing fear, daring me to confront whatever lay ahead. I took a shaky breath and chose the left hallway. It felt as if the walls closed in around me, but I pressed forward. With each step, the temperature dropped. Goosebumps prickled my skin. The faint sound of laughter echoed again, punctuating the silence like a taunt. I shivered, desperately wishing for some comfort, but all I felt was the crawling sensation of being watched. As I moved deeper into the corridor, I spotted something. A small piece of paper fluttered near the floor. I bent to pick it up, heart racing with hope, as I thought it might contain answers. The note was scribbled in what looked like a child's handwriting. "She's waiting for you." My stomach dropped. Who was waiting for me? I glanced over my shoulder, expecting to see the childlike figure again, but there was nothing. The shadows felt heavier. The laughter turned sinister, as if it were mocking my fear. I knew then that I had to find out what was happening, and who, or what, was trapped in this place. I quickened my pace. My footsteps echoed, each sound feeling like a countdown to something inevitable. Ahead, I noticed an open door at the end of the hall. Light spilled out, illuminating the darkness and drawing me closer. I hesitated at the threshold. It was a room I had never seen before. A supply closet stocked with medical supplies and equipment. But the disturbing part was the faint sound of breathing coming from within. It was steady and rhythmic, almost calming. I pushed the door ajar, peering inside. The light flickered as I crossed the threshold, illuminating a row of shelves. My eyes darted around the room until they landed on a figure slumped in the corner. My heart raced as I broke through the barrier of dread. "Hello?" I called out. There was no response, just a quiet breathing sound. I took a cautious step forward, the fear gripping me stronger than ever. That's when I saw it, a child's backpack resting beside the figure. It was the same backpack I had seen the little one carry earlier, the ghostly image still fresh in my mind. I approached the figure slowly. My pulse quickened as recognition washed over me. The figure was wearing a hospital gown, just like the ones my patients wore. I knelt beside it. "Are you okay?" I whispered, dreading the response. But then, the figure lifted its head. I never expected the eyes I locked onto would be those of a child. Terror swept through me as I realized I recognized her. She was a girl who had been a patient weeks ago, lost to a tragic accident that shattered her family. Before I could say another word, the girl whispered, Help me. A cold grip of fear seized my heart. I barely had time to process what this revelation meant when the lights flickered again, plunging us into darkness. Suddenly, I felt small hands clutching my arm. "They're coming," she whispered urgently. The laughter around me returned, louder and more chaotic. I needed to escape, but my body felt trapped in a nightmare. The shadows encroached, and that chilling giggle crescendoed in my ears. I had found her, but had I opened a door to something even worse? My heart pounded in the darkness as I felt the little girl's grip tighten on my arm. "We need to go," I whispered back, panic threading through my voice. But just as I moved to rise, a cold presence flooded the room, the laughter morphing into shrill cries that echoed through the supply closet. I turned, my breath hitching as I felt the shadows coalesce in the corner. From the murky depths, figures emerged, twisted shapes distorted by the flickering light. I couldn't count how many there were, but I knew they were not here to help. "Stay close to me," I urged her, my thoughts racing. I felt compelled to pull her to her feet, to flee this place of discomfort. But surprisingly, she shook her head, her young face filled with a desperate sadness. "You have to help me first," she insisted. "They won't let me go." A fierce wave of dread coursed through me. "Help you how?" I asked, desperately searching her eyes for understanding, for direction. The shadows danced menacingly around us. "They want me to play," she said, her voice trembling. "If I don't, they get angry." "What do you mean?" I asked, glancing back at the figures wavering in the dark. My instincts screamed to run, to leave this girl behind. But I also felt an inexplicable connection to her, a tether that held my feet in place. "The games," she whispered. "You have to win, or else—" The laughter surged, filling the air with chaos. I could hardly think straight. "What if I don't know how to play?" I questioned, fearing that my ignorance could cost us both our futures. "They'll teach you," she said, her eyes wide with fear. "But you must hurry. If they get me first, I'll never come back. Before I could process her words, the lights flickered once more. The darkness felt alive, clawing at the edges of my sanity. In a burst of clarity, I realized staying here would be fatal. "Okay," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "Let's do this. I'll help you win. Just tell me what to do." At that moment, the shadows around us shrieked in anger, swirling faster, like a vortex primed to engulf us. The little girl stepped forward, taking my hand in a firm grip, her small fingers warm compared to the icy tendrils gnawing at my skin. "Close your eyes," she commanded. "Don't look at them. They get power from your fear." I squeezed my eyes shut, the laughter intensifying as I tried to shut it out. Adrenaline surged through my veins. I felt the tug of her warmth beside me as she led me further into the darkness, deeper into the unknown. "Now what?" I asked, dread pooling in my stomach. "Say yes to the game," she instructed, her voice unwavering. "And remember, you must never look back." Then, in a heartbeat, the laughter shifted from maniacal to a low, ominous hum vibrating through the air. My heart raced as I thought about what I was about to agree to. I hesitated, but before I could second-guess myself, I whispered, "I'm in." The moment the words left my lips, I felt the ground shift beneath me, like we were being drawn into an unseen dimension. And in that instant, I realized, this was only the beginning. As soon as I said I was in, everything changed. The laughter faded, but the ominous hum filled every corner of the darkness, wrapping around me like a thick fog. I opened my eyes, expecting to find the supply closet still crammed with shadows and fear. Instead, we were standing in a vast, empty hall bathed in dim, flickering light. The air felt heavy with a palpable tension. "What happened?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. I looked around, trying to make sense of our surroundings. "The first game is about to start," the little girl said, her eyes gleaming with a mix of excitement and terror. "You need to listen closely." "Listen for what?" I felt the need to swallow my panic, but it lodged itself in my throat. "Listen for the sounds," she replied. "They'll tell you what to do." Just then, a faint noise pierced the silence, like the scratching of nails against linoleum. My heart raced. A door creaked open at the far end of the hall, revealing another room bathed in shadows. The scratching grew louder, accompanied by a low murmuring that made my skin crawl. "What's in there?" I asked, nodding toward the door. "Game 1. You have to go in," she said, her voice shaking slightly. "But you can't show fear. Remember, the shadows feed off it." I glanced back at her, searching for reassurance. "And if I do? If I can't keep it together?" "Then we both lose," she replied, her face darkening. "And they won't let you go." I hesitated. What choice did I have? The whispers from the door seemed to beckon me closer, wrapping around my curiosity like a vine. "Okay," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I felt a surge of determination, mingled with the overwhelming dread. "I'll go first. You follow, okay?" She nodded, her small face set with determination. I stepped forward, inching toward the doorway. As I crossed the threshold, the room swallowed me whole. Inside, I found an unsettling scene. A lone table stood at the center, covered in small, twisted toys, dolls with missing limbs, stuffed animals with haunting eyes. As the door behind me slammed shut, the murmurs increased to a frantic pitch. One word echoed in my mind, breaking through the haze of panic. "Play." Suddenly, the wall flickered with a vivid projection. It showed moments, a montage of children laughing, playing. But then it shifted to dark, distorted images of them crying, screaming. My stomach twisted. This wasn't just a game. It felt like a trap. I turned back, already regretting my decision, but the door remained firmly shut. "You have to pick one of the toys," the girl's voice floated in, but she was nowhere to be seen. "Then, play with it." I scanned the grotesque toys, dread clawing at me. "What happens if I choose?" "They will tell you how to win." Before I could reconsider, I reached out and grabbed a tattered teddy bear. The moment my fingers touched it, the room shifted again. Dark shadows creeping from the corners, boiling forth toward me like a tidal wave. The bear vibrated in my hand, pulsing with a chilling energy. Then everything went dark. I gasped as the darkness enveloped me. It was suffocating, as if the shadows themselves pressed against my skin. I tried to move, but my feet felt glued to the floor. Panic surged through me. "Play!" A whisper slithered into my ear. The voice was cold, echoing in the emptiness. "Play to survive." What did that even mean? I tightened my grip on the teddy bear, feeling its coarse fur against my palm. The weight of my decision hung heavily in the air. Suddenly, a cold wind swept through the room. I shivered as the shadows around me began to swirl, forming shapes that were both familiar and terrifying. Faces emerged. Some were children I recognized, others I didn't. Their eyes were wide with fear and sadness. "What's happening?" I shouted, desperation creeping into my voice. The shadows responded with a cacophony of whispers, a language I couldn't understand. Then, amidst the noise, I heard it. A low, guttural growl vibrating through the air. It was close. Too close. I threw a glance behind me. The room was shifting again. The table had vanished, and now I stood in a darkened playground, surrounded by empty swings that creaked back and forth. The sound of rustling leaves filled the silence, accompanied by echoing laughter that turned into anxious sobbing. "Play with the toy," the voice insisted, more demanding this time. I glanced down at the bear. It felt like a lifeline in a sea of chaos. Okay, I muttered, clutching it tighter. The whispers grew louder, as if encouraging me, pushing me towards something I couldn't see. I felt the urge to squeeze the bear, to wake it somehow. So, I squeezed it. At first, nothing happened. Then, a soft humming began, radiating from the bear. Light flickered at the edges of my vision, spilling out of the bear's stitched mouth. The darkness receded for a moment, revealing a path lined with glowing stones. I hesitated. Is this a way out? "Follow the light," the voice said, now clearer, almost soothing. Play the game. For how long had it been dark? Time felt meaningless here. I took a deep breath and, despite the terror knocking at my heart, I started walking toward the path. Each step resonated with the rhythmic hum of the bear. But as I moved forward, the shadows grew restless. They slithered at my heels, whispering secrets I couldn't understand. I turned back, expecting to see the dark playground. But instead, I was met with a wall of shifting faces, writhing and wailing. "Don't look back!" yelled the girl's voice, vibrant with fear. "Keep going!" Fighting the urge to turn, I pushed onward. The light ahead flickered and danced, beckoning me. I reached the end of the path, where a door stood ajar, glowing bright like a beacon. But just as I stepped toward it, the shadows surged forward, and I felt ice-cold fingers wrap around my ankle. I stumbled, caught off guard, and fell. I struggled to free myself as more hands grasped at me, pulling me backwards, away from the door. "Help!" I screamed, but no sound left my lips. Then everything shifted again, and I felt the air change. The whispers subsided, replaced by a new sound. The tolling of a bell. That's when I saw it. A figure outlined in darkness, standing just beyond the entrance to the door. I squinted, heart racing. Who were they? What did they want? But before I could comprehend, the figure stepped closer, and I realized it wasn't alone. Shadows coiled around it, as the tolling grew louder, each chime echoing deeper into my fear. I knew in that moment, I had to find a way out. The game was far from over. The figure advanced, its outline blurring in and out of focus. I could barely make out its shape, but something about it felt ominous, as if it breathed malice. The bell's toll grew deeper, resonating with a nefarious purpose that sent chills down my spine. I wanted to cry out, but the cold fingers of the shadows tightened around my ankle, muffling my voice. "Play!" The whisper echoed around me, urging me to engage with whatever was happening. But what game were they referring to? Was it this twisted game of survival? I fought against the hold on my leg. The sensation of being dragged was visceral, my body screaming against it. With every ounce of strength I had left, I yanked my foot free. The moment I did, I stumbled forward, nearly toppling over. I regained my balance just in time to see the door flicker. The figure was closer now, much closer. Fear coursed through me like electricity. Then I remembered the teddy bear. "What do you want?" I shouted, desperation creeping back in. "I don't want to play!" But the bell tolled again, and the shadows hissed in response. They recoiled slightly, as the light from the bear flickered brighter, illuminating the ground around me. I took a hesitant step forward, and to my surprise, the shadows retreated just enough for me to make progress toward the door. "Stay with the light." The girl's voice echoed in my mind, urging me on. I didn't want to follow the whispers, but fear clawed at me, compelling me. As I neared the door, I saw a small inscription carved into the frame. "The only way is through." What did that mean? Just beyond the door lay whatever lay beyond this twisted playground. A grim curiosity surrounding me. I pushed the door further open, the golden light pouring through as I crossed the threshold. Instantly, the air took on a new feeling. It was colder. Rough laughter echoed through the darkened hallway on the other side, redolent of mixed emotions. Happiness twisted with despair. I stepped into what resembled a disheveled corridor. The walls whispered, filled with shadows darting like frenzied insects. I had to keep moving. There had to be an end to this madness. I gripped the bear tightly, half expecting it to guide me through the chaos. "What now?" I muttered, searching for an answer in the comforting yet worn fabric of the toy. That's when I noticed a door at the far end of the hall, draped in a similar glow as the one I had just passed. My heart raced anew with the thought of escape. Just as I turned to head toward it, the laughter intensified, an echoing refrain that sent waves of nausea through me. "Don't go toward the sound!" a voice screamed from the shadows. It was a boy, his hair wild, and face smeared with what looked like dirt and tears. "It's a trap. You have to get out before it's too late." I hesitated, torn between the doorway of hope and the boy's warning. My feet felt glued to the spot, paralyzed by confusion. The shadows grew restless again, pulsing around me, waiting. I had to make a choice. With a deep breath, I pivoted toward the door, deciding to trust the light guiding me. The boy's warning echoed behind me, but the shadows were again lunging forward, and I felt their claws at my back. So I ran. The door drew nearer, its light now brighter than ever. I didn't look back, driven by primal instinct, a desperate need to escape. But as my hand closed around the doorknob, reality shifted beneath me again. The air crackled, and panic coiled in my gut. Then everything went dark. I opened my eyes to darkness, the kind that felt heavy and suffocating. Confusion clouded my thoughts. Where was I? My heart raced, pounding against my ribcage. I struggled to take a breath, the panic rising within me. Slowly, I adjusted to the dimness. I was still in the same twisted corridor, but everything looked different. The walls appeared more jagged, like they were closing in on me. Shadows twisted at the corner of my vision, but they stayed away from the fading light of the teddy bear. I rubbed my eyes, hoping I'd wake from a nightmare. But the laughter echoed again, this time closer, like it surrounded me. I turned in circles, searching for the source, but it felt like the sound bounced off the walls, a haunting melody of chaos. "Stay calm," I whispered to myself, gripping the bear tightly. "Just focus." I stepped forward, but the floor beneath me groaned, and I paused. Had it always sounded that way? The corridor twisted in ways I hadn't remembered. My eyes darted towards the door at the end of the hall. It still glowed, but something about it seemed off. As I approached it, I noticed a figure standing behind the door, an outline barely discernible in the light. I froze, unsure of what to do. The figure looked smaller, almost childlike. My heart softened at the assumption, but fear lingered. "Help me!" The voice was sharp, echoing painfully in the silence. "Please don't leave me!" I glanced back to see the boy from earlier, panic etched on his face. "It's fake!" he shouted. "They want you to open the door!" I faltered, caught between the figure calling for help and the boy trying to protect me. My instincts screamed danger, but the plea echoed in my mind. I remembered being scared and alone, not wanting to be abandoned. I almost reached for the doorknob. A sudden rush of cold wind whipped through the hall, and the laughter rose again, layered with something else. Sorrow. Anguish. I looked at the figure once more, and the face came into focus. I couldn't recognize it, but it felt familiar somehow. "Help me!" it cried again, the sound breaking into a sob. The boy's voice cut through the moment. "Don't trust it! It's a trick! That's how they get you!" His eyes widened, full of desperation. I felt the weight of his words. I wanted to scream, to do something other than just stand there. But the figure kept calling, its voice echoing off the walls. The shadows crept closer, drawn to the sound. "I have to get out," I murmured, stepping back. The bear began to glow dimly again, pulsing weakly in my hand. The sound of the figure's cries twisted into something distorted, almost sinister. I couldn't tell if it was real or just a ruse to draw me in. The boy took a step forward, eyes pleading. "Go, now!" he shouted, panic breaking through his voice. Behind me, the shadows amassed like a wave, preparing to crash. I turned and ran. My legs propelled me forward, desperately pushing me toward the exit I still hoped was there. The laughter faded into a chilling silence, but I could feel the eyes of the darkness watching, waiting. I burst into another chamber, the walls made of cold stone, and locked eyes with a new horror, broken mirrors reflecting distorted images. I caught a glimpse of myself, but the face staring back wasn't mine. It was the figure's, twisted and grinning. I screamed. I ran deeper into the chamber, heart racing, my breaths shallow and quick. The mirrors surrounded me, reflecting my panic back in unnerving ways. Each shard showed the figure I had seen, grinning with malevolent glee. My mind scrambled to process it. What was happening? I spun around, trying to find a way out. But every turn merely revealed more mirrors, each distorting reality further. The laughter swelled, unmistakable and vile, echoing through the room. I felt it clawing at my sanity. Then, I noticed something. In the corner of the room, one mirror didn't seem to reflect the chaos. Instead, it showed a serene scene. Trees swaying gently, sunlight filtering through leaves. I took a hesitant step towards it, my heart yearning for a moment of peace. "Don't!" The boy's voice pierced through my haze of fear. I whirled around to see him standing at the other end of the chamber, desperate to reach me. "It's a trap! The escape is just another lie. I hesitated, torn between the calming image and the urgency of his warning. The mirror flickered, and the laughter morphed into whispers. Words I couldn't quite catch but felt in my bones. My instincts screamed at me to stay away. "Help me!" echoed from my own reflection. I staggered back as I saw my face twisted into the same grin the figure wore. I squeezed the bear, its light flickering faintly, grounding me in this madness. Another glance at the boy revealed him moving closer, his face pale and desperate. "Trust me! We need to find a way out of here." His expression conveyed urgency, a shared understanding that time was running out. Suddenly, the mirrors began to vibrate, creating a low hum that resonated in my chest. The laughter intensified, morphing into a cacophony of cries and taunts, each a reminder of my fears. I couldn't take it anymore. I turned to the boy. "How do we escape?" "There has to be a door or something," he said, casting frantic glances at the mirrors. Just then, the ground beneath us trembled, the shadows pooling like dark liquid. The walls of the chamber began to shift, pressing inward, driving a chill deep into my bones. I spotted something glimmering at my feet. A small key. It was old, dusty, forgotten. I picked it up, the feel of it somehow warm in my palm. "Where did that come from?" the boy asked, eyes wide with confusion. "I don't know," I admitted, holding it up. "But maybe it's our way out." The mirrors pulsed with an ominous energy, and the laughter grew louder still. The key felt like a lifeline amidst the chaos. "Over there!" I pointed to a door slowly emerging at the edge of the chamber, its outline flickering in and out of existence. As I moved, the mirrors began to reflect my determination, the versions of me appearing resolute. I ran toward the door, but the boy hesitated. "Wait!" he shouted. Before I could react, something heavy crashed against a nearby mirror. It shattered, sending shards flying. I ducked, heart pounding, but when I looked back up, the boy was gone. "No!" I screamed. Everything twisted into chaos, the laughter blending with desperate cries as I raced toward the door. But then everything went dark. I blinked, and the darkness melted away, revealing a sterile, brightly lit room. My heart raced, my breath shallow. I was back in the hospital, collapsed on the floor of the supply closet, the teddy bear still clutched in my hands. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, normalcy coming at a cost. The memories of twisted corridors and ominous laughter hung in the air like a vapor, ghostly, yet vivid. "Are you okay?" A voice broke through the heavy silence. It was a nurse, a concerned face staring at me with a mixture of confusion and pity. I struggled to sit up, heart still pounding, torn between relief and anguish. I was in... I stammered, grappling for the words to explain the vivid horrors I had just escaped. The images swirled in my mind. A child, a boy, laughter that lurked like a predator. But the doubts lingered. Was it real, or simply fatigue? A figment of my terrified imagination? The nurse knelt beside me, her brow furrowed in genuine concern. "You've been in here for hours. We thought you were just taking a break." Hours? But it felt like days trapped in that terrible game of shadows. I couldn't shake the feeling that I had barely escaped something insidious. As I regained my footing, I glanced around the room, searching for any signs of the girl or the boy who had guided me. But the supply closet was just filled with rows of medical supplies. No trace of the haunted playground or the heart-stopping laughter that had ensnared my mind. "Do you need help? Should I call someone?" The nurse pressed, tilting her head. Studying my face for answers I struggled to articulate. I tried to nod, opening my mouth, but the shadows from the nightmare hung heavy on my tongue. I wanted to convey the urgency of my experience, the warning from the boy, the urgency to escape that dark fate. But was it just my mind playing tricks, fueled by exhaustion from the long hours and relentless shifts? "No," I finally managed, the word feeling weak in the face of my turmoil. "I just need a moment." The nurse offered a sympathetic smile before slipping out, leaving me alone with my jumbled thoughts. I took a shaky breath and gripped the teddy bear tighter, staring at the way it seemed to still pulse slightly with warmth, as if remnants of energy lingered in its fabric. Suddenly I remembered the small inscription on the frame of the door. The only way is through. I could hear it still echoing in my mind, steady as my heartbeat. In that moment, I wasn't sure if behind me lay the door to freedom, or if the horrors of the hospital were still lurking, waiting to reclaim me. I had escaped. But had I really? I could still hear faint whispers in the air, like echoes of conversations I couldn't quite decipher. A chill traced my spine, sending a shiver through me. Could there still be shadows watching, waiting patiently like the figures that haunted the corners of my mind? As I stood and collected myself, a sense of foreboding settled over me. I knew I had survived, but unanswered questions lingered in the silence. What had really happened? And what did the boy mean when he said it wasn't over? I looked back toward the door, feeling the weight of uncertainty that still clung to the air. A reminder that even in escape, shadows are seldom left behind. I stepped out of the supply closet, determination filling my chest to regain control. But the unease remained. What had I unearthed within those walls? I tried to shake it off, but the feeling of being watched gnawed at me as I walked into the corridor, heavy with memories of the night. Deep down I knew. I might have escaped the game, but it was far from over. I kept walking, whispers trailing behind me like shadows, looking back only to see darkness,